I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. It all started like an August wind from the Dnieper River, fresh, sudden, and with a spicy, piercing sense of anticipation. My name is Natalie. I'm 33, and not long ago, my husband Mike and I moved from bustling Dayton to a quiet town near Greenfield. We wanted peace, quiet, a garden, and a cozy fireplace. The house was wooden, with peeling paint on the walls, but it felt warm and inviting from the moment we stepped in. In the creaks of the floorboards, in the smell of dried apples on the porch, in the flame of the fireplace on a rainy evening. Mike often traveled for work, driving a semi-truck and delivering loads across Ohio and Kentucky. I was used to the loneliness, to his voice messages in the evenings and his week-long absences. 2 blocks away lived Alex, Mike's friend from college. They used to fish together, fix boat engines, and complain about gas prices. When Mike was away, Alex would sometimes stop by to drop off cucumbers from his mom, or a thermos of coffee, or just to say hello. He was always reserved, his voice calm, a bit hushed. Hooded jackets suited him, and a lock of hair always fell across his forehead. Sometimes I caught him looking at me, a steady gaze that seemed to read something inside me. But it was always within the bounds of decency. Until that evening, a light rain was falling. I had just washed the floor, slipped into my favorite wine-red robe, and pinned my hair up in a messy bun. A table lamp in the living room cast a warm, amber light. I was flipping through an old Midwest Living magazine, dreaming of replacing my old kitchen cabinets, when the doorbell rang. Alex stood on the porch. His hair was plastered to his forehead by the wind. His jacket was dark and wet, and he held a plastic folder in his hands. "Sorry it's late," he said, shaking the water from his shoulders. "Mike forgot these papers. He asked me to bring them." I nodded and let him in. He smelled of rain, leather, and a faint, sharp cologne. I handed him a towel. He dried off and walked into the room. I made mint tea, set out 2 mugs. He stared silently at the flickering candle flame. "Is everything okay?" I asked. He turned to me. His eyes were dark and deep. "Natalie, are you happy?" The question hit me like a jolt. I froze. It seemed like a normal question, but it was too heavy. I smoothed the edge of my robe. "Of course," I exhaled. My voice wavered. He touched his mug, accidentally brushing my hand. Goosebumps rose on my skin, like he'd struck a spark. I pulled my hand back too quickly. The silence became almost tangible. He stood up, stepped closer, and draped the edge of my robe over my shoulder, as if to comfort me. But his fingers lingered longer than they should have. "You're trembling," he said softly. I looked up at him. We were standing too close. I should have stepped back, but I didn't. That night, I wandered through the house, adjusting pillows, watering the ficus, straightening the laundry. But it wasn't about order. I just couldn't sleep. A quiet, warm, but insistent unease had settled in me. 3 days passed. I didn't see Alex, and strangely, it felt right. Safe. But every sound outside made my heart race. Every footstep in the yard made me rush to the window. On the 5th day, I went to the county center to buy some vegetables, a pack of candles, and fresh bread. I put on a simple linen dress, tied my hair up in a high ponytail, slipped on pale flats. I wanted to be proper. I was picking out tomatoes when I heard Natalie behind me. He stood there by the mineral water stand in a gray windbreaker, his eyes tired. "Hi," I said. "How are you?" He was searching for something in my eyes. "I don't know," I whispered. He smiled faintly. "Let's take a walk." I nodded. We strolled along the river. An old wooden bridge led to the park. The air smelled of wet leaves and something fried. We talked about trivial things, prices, movies, the exchange rate. But each word rang inside me like stepping on glass. At a bench, he stopped. "Have you thought about it?" I knew what he meant, but I asked, "About what?" "About that night, about us." On my lap, I had a bag of grapes. I squeezed it too hard. "It was a mistake," I managed to say. "Maybe," he said. "But if it was, why are you still here?" I was silent. His voice became a whisper. "I'm not asking for anything. Just tell me honestly. Do you want me to disappear?" I couldn't answer. I just stood up. "I have to go." He didn't stop me, only nodded. But in his eyes was that spark that melted everything inside. After that walk, it seemed like everything calmed down. The house was quiet again. Only not inside me. Inside, everything was buzzing, pulsing, ready to burst out. I cooked sorrel soup, folded laundry, watered the rose on the windowsill, did everything a wife does when her husband is away. But every time I passed a mirror, I caught a stranger's gaze in it. Something was pulling at me, like I no longer belonged to myself. 2 more days passed. Mike was still on the road. He called, told me about gas stations near Topeka, how he nearly fell asleep at the wheel. I said, "Yeah, take care, I'm waiting." But my voice sounded distant. He didn't notice, or didn't want to. On the 4th evening, the wind picked up. The sky darkened and smelled of a storm. I was closing the windows, fixing the curtains, when the doorbell rang. I knew who it was. Alex was on the porch without an umbrella. His black t-shirt and dark jeans were wet at the hems, his hair tousled. He looked at me for a long time. No words, no smile. I was in a light robe with thin straps. Underneath, ivory-colored lingerie. I hadn't planned it. I was just at home, just being me. He walked in and closed the door. The light in the living room was dim. The lamp cast soft shadows. He didn't rush. He watched me as if memorizing every detail. His gaze slid down my neck, my shoulders, and a bit lower. "You're trembling," he said. I didn't know why. From fear, desire, or from the fact that I couldn't hide behind words anymore. He took a step. I didn't move back. His hand touched my shoulder. A gentle touch. Careful, almost respectful. Goosebumps ran down my arm. He leaned closer. I felt the warmth of his body, his breath on my neck. "If you say no," he whispered, "I'll leave." I closed my eyes and said nothing. I woke up alone. The room was warm, but the air felt heavy, like unspoken words. On the nightstand lay a napkin with a handwritten note. You already know the answer. He left as quietly as he had come. No questions, no explanations. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, barefoot, hair messy. Shame and freedom fought inside me, like spring ice against warm water. The next days felt like I was drifting. Breakfast, cleaning, Mike's calls, clean windows. I wore a dress with tiny flowers, like I used to. Braided my hair in 2 tight braids, put a light gloss on my lips. My reflection looked proper, but not real. Alex didn't call, didn't write, didn't look for me. And then we ran into each other at the farmer's market. I was picking strawberries, wearing a light blue dress and white sandals. I didn't expect anything, just wanted sweet berries. And suddenly he was there, with a jar of honey in his hand. Natalie, I froze. Everything else disappeared. I won't come again unless you call me, he said. I couldn't answer. I just looked into his eyes, where there was everything: warmth, sadness, waiting. He leaned closer. His lips were near my ear. But you know where to find me. He left. That evening, Mike suggested, let's go visit your mom in Lubbock for the weekend. Take our minds off things. I nodded. It felt like a chance or a test. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the floor, barefoot in a light robe. My hair was loose, my lips bitten from nerves. I opened my phone. Alex's name burned on the screen like a sign. I wrote, "Where are you?" He replied almost instantly, "Where do you want me to be?" I hovered my finger over the keyboard, then sent my address. 15 minutes later, he stood at the door. He didn't ask, didn't reproach, just walked in. I stood there barefoot, my robe slipping off one shoulder. He stepped close, almost not breathing. "Are you sure?" I nodded. He hugged me slowly, deeply, without words. His hands slid down my back, stopping at my waist. I was trembling. He didn't rush, studied every detail of my body like it was new. I wasn't a wife. I was a woman. And then, in the quietest moment, we heard the sound of a key in the lock. When I heard it turn, everything froze. The air, my thoughts, my breath. I clutched the edge of my robe like it could shield me from the truth. Alex let go of me almost immediately. His eyes met mine. In them was understanding and goodbye. Mike walked in. His jacket was wet, a bag slung over his shoulder. He stopped on the threshold. His gaze swept over me, then behind me. He understood everything, without a word. The silence in the room was sharp as a knife. "Who is he?" he asked quietly. His voice was calm, almost gentle. It was scarier than yelling. I couldn't answer. I just stood there, barefoot, my heart pounding in my throat. "Do I know him?" he asked again. I was silent. Alex pulled on his jacket and stepped toward the door, but Mike blocked his path. "Not here," I whispered. "Please." Mike gave a wry smile, but there was no anger in his eyes. Only emptiness. Do you love him? The question was like a gunshot. I didn't know. Not then. I don't know. My voice shook. Honestly, Mike nodded. His face showed nothing but tiredness. Then I'll leave, because you've already made your choice, even if you haven't admitted it to yourself. He walked out without slamming the door, without a word. But his shadow stayed in the walls, in the air, in me. Alex stood there, not moving, waiting, not demanding, not pleading. I'm sorry, I whispered. For what? For destroying everything. He stepped closer, hugged me. His hands were warm and patient. No, Natalie, he said. You just woke up. 2 days passed. Alex left for Florence to stay with his sister. He said he'd give me time, space, the right to silence. I was alone. Mike didn't answer my calls. My mom called, asked if I was sick. I nodded, unable to explain anything. On the 3rd day, I sat by the window. I wore Mike's old shirt. My hair was a mess, my face tired. I watched the sun play on the wet pavement. Everything looked the same, but everything was different. A knock on the door. I stood and opened it. A girl about 16 stood there, holding a white envelope. This is from your husband, she said, and left. I held the envelope like a grenade. The paper was thick, crisp. Inside was a single sentence. Sometimes leaving is also care. No signature, but I knew who it was from. I sank to the floor, clutching the letter to my chest. No tears came, only a dull ache inside. I didn't know who I was now, or where I was, but I knew there was no way back.